Hey, Debbie.
Nice sweater.
Trying to go a little less formal.
I like it. It's kind of like Mr. Rogers. Feel.
That's exactly what I was going for. You look
Okay,
great.
thanks. Let me try to share my screen. I tried to do it in Zoom and also like use the presentation mode, but uh-oh. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh shit.
Need help with anything?
It's not, so my options are to share screen, and it's the only option is to share my entire screen, not an application.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, wait, there it is. Oh, so weird.
Perfect.
Is that working?
It is.
Um, okay, and we're down below. Okay, awesome.
Great. Trying to see if there's a way to make the screen a little bigger. All right. That's just a waiting game.
Yeah. 2 minutes. Oh shoot. Okay. Oh shoot, you can see my notes.
I'll have to take a picture of my setup here because it's very interesting.
Yeah, I want to see it. Oh no. Okay, I'll have to get used to this. Toggling back and forth. Jenny Stone entered the session.
Great. Hi,
How
Jenny.
do we?
Oh, she's gone.
Can Jenny hear us?
I'm not sure if she's in anymore. Oh, she still is. Okay.
She said yes. Can you ping her on Zoom?
I actually closed my Zoom.
Oh, no worries then. Because how do we know when we're live?
I think it goes live now. I think, yeah, sub 12:45.
So we're live?
I believe so.
So we'll give it a couple more minutes for people to join because it looks like we have 3 folks. No one has joined our session, so we'll give it another few minutes.
Yep.
Hi, Hi, Jenny. If you can still hear us, I think you have to request access for us to view you as a moderator. And I believe it's the bottom left corner.
We're on Texas time, so.
Gotcha. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our session. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for folks to join before we begin our presentation. Okay, it looks like folks are starting to join, so we'll give it another minute. Looks like we have a great crowd so far. Okay, excellent. We'll go ahead and kick it off. Let me make sure I can. Bob, can you still see the screen?
Yep.
Great. All right, here we go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in our presentation on a federal perspective on food insecurity. We'll start off by introducing our speakers. My name is Debbie Nguyen, and I have worked in government consulting with Partner Forces for about a year now. Previously, I have worked with several federal agencies, including the Department of Justice, the Federal Judiciary, the Department of Agriculture, and now supporting the Department of Homeland Security. My background is in program management and data analytics. I currently work alongside Bob McDonald using data to analyze risks to our national critical functions.
Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to our presentation. As Debbie mentioned, my name is Bob McDonald. I'm a senior analyst here with Partner Forces, supporting the NRMC, supporting the National Risk Management Center. So I'm originally from Boston, have a background in emergency management, data science, and international affairs. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Looking forward to this presentation and checking out some of the other sessions later in the day.
Hey, thanks, Bob. So in our presentation, we'll share with you about our company and what we do to support the Department of Homeland Security. We'll give you our perspective on food insecurity through the lens of our clients, how we've raised this issue that has been exacerbated by COVID-19, as well as some federal mitigation measures. We'll run through some of the data that we have assessed and share some of the challenges to federal data collection related to food insecurity. Lastly, we'll have some information and federal resources that Austin can use to combat this issue. So, who is Partner Forces? Partner Forces is a women-owned small business specializing in management consulting services to federal, state, local, and private sector homeland security and national security enterprises. We're headquartered in Austin, Texas, with staff in Washington, D.C., where I'm sitting now. Partner Forces provides a range of services to our respective clients, from policy and data analysis to strategic planning and communication support, with a singular focus on safeguarding our country, people, and infrastructure. We deliver innovative and impactful solutions. Since 2003, the Partner Forces team has supported the National Risk Management Center, NRMC, housed within the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, of the Department of Homeland Security. We work side by side with our federal partners to advance the NRMC's mission of identifying, analyzing, prioritizing, and managing risks to our national physical and cyber infrastructures. The NRMC focuses these efforts on 16 infrastructure sectors identified as critical to the functioning of our country and the welfare of its citizens, including healthcare and public health, water, food, and agriculture. COVID-19 has proven to be a unique challenge to the NRMC and its stakeholders, particularly related to securing the national food supply and monitoring agricultural markets. Partner Forces' recent work has included providing NRMC with an in-depth analysis on the rise of national food insecurity driven by the COVID-19 pandemic. As part of this analysis, we found that the ongoing economic fallout of the pandemic has both exacerbated historic trends in food insecurity and has caused greater food insecurity in areas with high employment concentrations in industries hardest hit by the pandemic.
So the mission of both CISA and the NRMC really encompass a huge range of functions. Since its restructuring in 2018, the NRMC has distilled the many infrastructures, industries, and operations under its purview into 55 national critical functions, as Debbie just mentioned. So these NCFs range from operate core network, provide medical care, which has obviously been top of mind throughout the pandemic, to what we're here talking about today, what we term produce and provide human and animal food products and services. The analytic products delivered by the NRMC to federal leaders, industry partners, state and local agencies use these national critical functions as a framework to assess the potential cascading effects of various events, disasters, or federal policies. So these NCFs, the 55 NCFs encompass the strategic ends of the agency and the federal government, but we have to dig a bit deeper to really understand the risks faced by the nation. To do that, the NRMC uses several risk drivers, which you see here. These are the materials, people, market forces, which affect these critical functions. The NRMC analysts closely examine critical workforces, commodity shortages, and changes in demand to assess trends related to these NCFs in the short and medium term. So how does this framework work in practice? And more importantly, how does it relate to the subject matter we're discussing here today? From very early in the pandemic, the agency focused its analytic efforts using this framework to better understand the mounting issue of food insecurity. Really, this was top of mind for many NRMC leaders, reflecting their own backgrounds. For many of them, it hit home very closely. So it really shows the breadth of the diversity within the leadership of the agency. And as previously mentioned, one of the 55 NCFs is produce and provide human and animal food products and services. Very nice and succinct for you. But many of the other NCFs support the nation's food supply and the food security of Americans. So these analyses quickly grew in depth and scope. Just as an example, these are 4 general areas that we really looked at throughout the pandemic, from essential workforce, which encompassed anything from COVID-19 transmission within agricultural working communities to groceries, meat processing factories, anything of the sort there. That directly obviously relates to food supply. We also analyzed the transition of commercial food supply chains to the consumer supply chains, which really hindered a lot of the supply at the end point for many Americans. We also looked into the different transportation infrastructures and supporting the food supply chains, as well as the COVID-19 policies, which have evolved throughout the pandemic.
According to USDA, food insecurity is defined as a household's inability to provide enough food for every person to live a healthy, active life. Food insecurity is linked to poverty, unemployment, homeownership, and disability prevalence, among other factors. The pandemic has induced a rise in national food insecurity and diminished operational capacity of food banks across the country, which has resulted in higher rates of hunger. We assessed up to 18% of households will likely face food insecurity, an increase of 7.5% from 2019. Local and regional economies observing particularly high unemployment amidst COVID-19 have seen even higher rates of food insecurity. Rising food insecurity also drives higher demand on food banks. At the same time, food banks face multiple challenges meeting this rising demand, including reduced donations, higher food prices, higher operating costs, and reduced workforce. The competing trends of rising food insecurity in food banks diminish the capacities to meet the demand already resulted in over 10,000 food-related charities closing since the start of the pandemic. Continuing pressure on food banks and additional closure of food bank facilities will likely compound food insecurity to over 40 million Americans.
So diving into the analysis which produced that visualization in the previous slide, we replicated a 2014 USDA study, which involved unemployment statistics, consumer pricing statistics, and inflation. Of these, the most significant source of food insecurity pressure arose from the sharp increase in unemployment, which peaked in April of 2020 at around 15%. We can assume that such steep increases will lead to some distortions in future unemployment, along with lingering effects to household finances. So even as the employment landscape improves, financial issues and related effects such as food insecurity or reduced food security will persist even as the job market slowly recovers. The one silver lining here was that limited inflation in the early days of the pandemic actually proved to be a saving grace. So the study, which we replicated, associated a 0.5% increase in annual food insecurity for every percent of inflation. And throughout most of 2020, we saw about a 0.8% inflation rate. With sustained low inflation carrying over into the current year, we can expect this to have minimal impact on food insecurity and likely dampen the shock associated with the current recession.
There are both federal and local efforts to mitigate food bank supply and demand issues to tackle the current food insecurity. Emergency congressional appropriations have expanded existing programs to address food insecurity, such as the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, and the Emergency Food Assistance Program. USDA is implementing direct support to farmers and ranchers in food purchase and distribution through the CARES Act and Families First Coronavirus Response Act, as well as a 40% increase in monthly SNAP benefits. President Biden recently signed an order for the Department of Agriculture to allow states to increase SNAP benefits by 15% awarded through school meal programs for low-income schools. This could give a family of 3 children or more than 100 in extra benefits every 2 months. USDA's Farmers to Families Food Box program has partnered with regional and local distributors to purchase approximately $3 billion in fresh produce, dairy, and meat and deliver boxes to Americans in need. USDA is continuously evaluating how to expand access to the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program to underserved cities and states where additional food boxes are in demand by families in need. In addition, states' National Guards are being deployed to assist food banks in some regions where volunteer numbers have diminished, as requested by the state's contractors and state's Department of Agriculture.
Here we have a summary table capturing some of the federal programs and appropriations laid out in legislation last year. Approximately $7 billion have been appropriated by Congress to respond directly to trends of increased food insecurity, ranging from FEMA emergency food programs to USDA farmer support. Congress also allocated $74 billion in COVID-19 food insecurity mitigation to respond to growing insecurity trends associated with higher levels of unemployment, food costs, and job losses. These increased allocations have expanded benefit amounts, countering increased food costs and improving food access. We should also note that with the new administration, additional programs and relief will likely arise in the coming months. But obviously, it's a very fluid situation, so we plan to keep a close eye on that. So I wanted to dive into some of the data that we use day to day in producing our analyses that the NRMC relies on. So our analyses and the policy making referenced in the previous slide use several key data sources, three of which are here. So the USDA Economic Research Service is the primary collector of food-related data across the federal government. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with it. The ERS provides really granular data on anything from crop yields, meat prices, to federal sustenance programs such as SNAP. The Census Bureau also provides an enormously important data source, which I'll touch on in a minute, the Household Pulse Survey. So this has provided near real-time data relative to other federal data sources on food insecurity nationwide. It's worth diving into this a little bit just because of how valuable this tool has been. So this was a weekly survey that was sent out to a randomized group of millions of Americans. That really is why it went through the Census Bureau, just because of their access to different contact information for Americans nationwide. And it included a range of questions touching on not only food insecurity, but also the effects of federal relief, spending habits, and the like. This product has spanned nearly the entirety of the crisis. We have some really interesting results over time. The data has confirmed that households with children and single income households face the most acute threat of food insecurity or very low food insecurity. And while levels of food insecurity have sustained at a very high level, according to these data, overall it has moderately declined and likely linked to, at least in part, to federal and state interventions. Interestingly, many households continue to struggle in accessing their desired food goods, indicating persisting issues in supply chains of staple goods. And moving forward, we may continue to see changes in the availability of some food due to ongoing COVID outbreaks, reopening of restaurants and colleges, which would transition food supply chains back to the commercial sector, as I had mentioned before, and the pandemic's impacts on the agricultural sector. Finally, one other important source of data is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the Bureau hosts a number of really excellent data tools related to national, regional, and industrial job markets. These data proved pretty invaluable in assessing which areas of the country are likely to experience greatest need and will require the most long-term support as the nation climbs back from the initial shock of the pandemic.
So we'll give a little bit of attention to Texas. So there are 4 barriers to food access. 1 is low proximity, people who live far from healthy food retail. 90% of the Travis County population live far from a healthy food store. 2, lower household income. People have less household budgets for healthy food purchases. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in Travis County, roughly 53,000 households are below the poverty level. 3, fewer mobility options, people who have less access to cars or other transportation. According to the census, 24,000 households in Travis County are without vehicles. And 4, less healthy food availability, so areas with a lower supply of healthy food. So the distribution of healthy food store is disproportionate between the east and west sides of I-35. There are 77 healthy food stores on the west side versus 22 on the east. Feeding America conducted a study to improve our understanding on food insecurity and food costs at a local level. In response to COVID-19, a report was released to illustrate the projected impact of the pandemic on local food insecurity. According to the study, the projected food insecurity rate in Travis County is 16.2, higher than the national rate of 7%. More than 25% of Austin residents are low income, living below 185% of the federal poverty level, therefore face affordability barriers to accessing healthy food. Supporting the alignment of affordable housing, public transit, and healthy food retail can improve the quality of life for the most vulnerable populations in Austin.
So we threw a lot of information at you today. There were a lot of different analyses and a lot of different acronyms, but we wanted to provide a bit more information and some federal resources which may be helpful in your own work. So I would highly encourage everyone to visit the CISA.gov website, learn a bit more about the agency, its mission, and the tools available. I know we're all here to discuss food insecurity, resilience, and equity. But we would really be remiss in not highlighting the many cybersecurity tools and training available through CISA. These threats really affect us all, and you can best serve your own stakeholders by securing your networks and your data. You can learn more about the NRMC in particular, the analytic frameworks discussed here today, and some of the public-private partnerships hosted by the NRMC in support of the national critical functions we discussed. And finally, please feel free to contact your local CISA office. For Texas, that would be Region 6. Elsewhere, please refer to the map here to ask about available resources, contacts, or events which may support and advance your missions. I also wanted to provide a bit of additional data sources from across the federal government. Many of you are probably familiar with some of these, but just in case, wanted to list off a few here. So as I mentioned, the USDA ERS really provides some exceptional data sets on agricultural harvest, food prices, sustenance programs. The household data survey, I would really recommend to you all just to look over the methodology, some of the available data sets. That will continue through at least March 1st, and I would expect that this product or similar products would extend well into 2021. As the recently published National Pandemic Response Plan highlights food insecurity, equity, and data collection as key components to the new administration's policy goals. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, as I mentioned, provides excellent data sets. They also provide an excellent monthly read in their monthly labor review. This will often touch on topics related to food insecurity, the state of household finances, and other related research. The St. Louis FRED, as part of the Federal Reserve, also provides great research on a myriad of socioeconomic topics. Their products and resources prove particularly useful for historical analyses. So I'd encourage any of you who are involved in that to check that out. And finally, the Congressional Research Service is really an amazing resource for any topic you can think of. Has some excellent products related to the state of the pandemic, food insecurity in the U.S. right now, and congressional relief packages. It's really an exceptional service to us all, and really any topic you can think of would be included there. So please go check those out.
So Bob and I want to thank you for listening in our on a federal perspective on food insecurity. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. So feel free to utilize the chats. I'm going to go and navigate over there to see if we have any questions. Yes, we can check to see if our slides will be available post-presentation. We're happy to share these slides and resources with you.
Absolutely. Great.
Thanks everyone for joining. We'll continue to monitor the chat and happy to answer any questions that you have. That's a great question, Paula. Paula had asked if there's any changes that we anticipate with the new administration. I want to say yes. Biden had already signed an executive order increasing SNAP benefits. So we're already seeing changes. And I think, as he continues to do great work, we'll continue to see further changes.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback off that, as I mentioned a few slides back, the National Pandemic Response Plan was recently published. And I know it's gotten quite a bit of press. It's very long, but if you have the time, there's definitely some great information, at least hinting as to what the policy goals for the new administration will be, related specifically to food security as well as data collection and equity. So I would really commend you all to check that out if you have a few hours to spare to leaf through.
Absolutely. And food insecurity doesn't start or end with COVID. This is an ongoing issue that needs to be addressed. So continuing to monitor it and looking at the data and making decisions on what it's telling us will certainly help resolve this issue. Timothy had asked if the slides are available. They are not yet available, but we can certainly talk to the conference, make sure these slides are made available to everyone.
So I see one question here, localized data for Riverside, California. So as it relates to food insecurity, I would recommend going to the USDA ERS website. They drill down to a pretty local level. Feeding America is also one that a private source that we've used also in our analyses, and that has really great data down to the county level. So that may provide you with a bit more information there. If you're interested in anything related to unemployment data or different employment concentrations, two data sources. One would be the BLS website that I mentioned, and one that I didn't include here would be clustermapping.us. That's hosted by Harvard University, I believe in partnership with BLS, and that has some really interesting data that can tell you a bit more about your local economic breakout and some of the potential impacts that might have given some of the COVID-related employment trends that we're seeing.
And I also encourage you to reach out to your CISA region. California is in region number 9. So those folks over there can certainly help you with any information that you may need. You're welcome. Thank you for your great question.
All right, I think that brings us to time.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone once again for joining. We'll make sure that this slide deck is made available to you all. And we'll see you in other breakout sessions.
Thank you all so much.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.